And the field was developed, and Joe Pat brought it to conclusion. But then Joe Pat's wishes and you know, is that it's left for a year, that it's not played on for a year. But in the meantime, lots of development had to be done around the complex or around the pitch as well, like the stand.
I've seen photographs of the old, let's say the old pitch before any of that work was done.
Yeah.
And there's stables or something, or some buildings up at the back of the
there were
goal.
old stables at the back of the parish, and you know, that had to be brought into you know, Canon Gilson was involved, and Father Maguire, and we got some land of the parish as well.
And I suppose, was that quietly negotiated?
Quietly negotiated as well, like, you know.
Sean McCaig, I suppose, again.
Yeah. You know, Father Gilson being a neighbour of his up the Strathclyde Road.
So then, that's the you've got some ground at the top to expand at the top. You have Malachi Smith's lane straightened out there, and
Paddy Boylan's.
And then I remember what impressed me very much at the time, Seamus, was the finishing that was put to the whole thing. Do you remember the fencing?
There's fencing. Dennis Wright from Baltorba, the fencing, and you know, it was very good fencing. That's right. Stand. Wilson's from Loughegish did the stand. There was Donegal stone along the wall.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Foss people under Frank McKenna did the concrete. Around the complex, you know, the car park and that. So it was brought to a very high standard finish.
And of course, probably in a fairly reasonable time as well.
Reasonable time, yeah. It was all done while the pitch was maturing.
Right.
And then the opening came in May in 1990.
Yeah.
And it was a very proud day for the club, because it was the fruition of a lot of work by a lot of people. And, you know, and it paid for.
Yeah.
And Sean McCaig was the chairman of the opening day committee, and the place looked very well. There was a... You know, there was...
The miners made a contribution.
That's right. Mikey and Tommy, who were great supporters of the club, great players and great supporters of the club, they donated the scoreboard.
No, it wouldn't have been their first contribution.
Oh, not at all, not at all. They donated the scoreboard, and it was an electronic scoreboard. It was the first of the kind in the county, where, you know, it was done automatically. Before that, the scoreman used to climb up on a stage and put up the score. By the time you'd have that one up, there might be another one. But this is an electronic one, and it was a very novel, and it was the first one in the county. And it was supplied by Elmore's from Louth, who supplied the Croke Park scoreboard. So you know, the miners donated that. You know, every club has one now, but at that time it was the very first one.
And then there was a clock, I remember.
There was a clock, a GNR clock.
What's that, GNR?
The Great Northern Railway. It used to come into Monaghan for those people where upstairs, downstairs is now. That was the railway station. So there used to be a clock at every railway station. Because people, suppose, didn't have watches. The clock was very important. There was a large clock, and it came from the GNR station in Belfast, and it was donated by Christy McAree from Drumslavog.
Well, Christy has a nephew John Sullivan.
John O'Sullivan. That's right. John Sullivan.
And believe it or not, John has built out there at Christy's place. That's right. So John Sullivan's mother would have been one of the McArees.
One of the McArees at Drumslavog. So that's the connection. So the clock's still there.
And of course, I think you mentioned Peter Quinn there, didn't you?
Peter Quinn was the president-elect of the GAA, and you know, he's a brother of Sean Quinn's, you know, from Quinn Industries, and he had been elected president, so he did the official opening.
And of course, you had I remember the various guests of honor. Remember, there was a whole list sent out to the various teams or something. Yeah,
that's right. You know, as well as the dignitaries, it was an occasion to honour the different teams that had brought honour to the parish from an early age. There was the David 35 team, and the Knockatown 44 team,
and the Scotstown 33
team,
the Scotstown
33 team as well, and the Scotstown 50 team,
and as well,
and of course the 58, 60 and 61 teams. The first one in Shaman. So they were all honoured, the surviving members. And yourself, Mackie, you and all introduced them to the crowd in the stand.
Yeah, it was a fantastic
great day.
And then, of course, remember the match. There was a football match too.
There was a football match between Dublin and Monaghan, and the score was irrelevant, but it was a great opportunity for both teams. And the Dublin team was captained by Dr. Mc Caffrey.
I thought you were going to say it was a great operation for the scoreboard.
Well, the scoreboard got a good testing that day, and it stood up to it well. The score was very high. and shall we say,
whose favour?
It wasn't in Monaghan's favour.
All right. You mentioned Dr. Noel Mc Caffrey there.
Yeah, he was the captain, and he was playing for Dublin at the time.
Yeah.
Captain of the Dublin team, and he was the son of Mc Caffrey.
Drumshaver,
a brother of Ali Butler's.
All right.
And he was a former player with the club.
Yeah.
So it was a great occasion for that family as well.
That's what, May 1990?
May 1990.
20 years ago.
The years fly, Mikey.
Yeah. So you were finished with the draws, I take it, at that stage?
No, we were far from finished. There was always another draw around the corner.
Right.
The county board used to there used to be Kishta Winnacon, and they used to run a Kishta to raise funds for the county.
Yeah.
And if the club sold so many, they got a fraction of it, or they got a percentage of it.
They called that score Winnacon. Sorry, Kishta Winnacon.
Yeah.
So you called.
Well, they had discontinued it.
All right.
So we adopted that at that stage.
Yeah.
Soon after, in the early 90s, Kishta and Wa.
All right.
And it's still continuing.
And it was a weekly.
No, it was a monthly draw, and it was £5 a month,
all right,
which has now been translated to €7 a month.
All right.
After the euro came in, and it's still that.
Good.
And
good.
It's done every month, and it's a very successful thing, and it's very necessary for the ongoing running of the club.
Yeah, that's right. Seamus, you've moved on fairly rapidly there now, and fair play to you, you have a good memory too. I want to just get back to, we'll say, seniors and that. Your seniors were still going strong, Seamus. Do you remember you had Alphonsis Caulfield? He was.
That's right. Well, I forgot to mention the one, in '89, the Ulster club.
Oh, that's right.
On the football side of things, we were talking about development, but on the football side of things, was very strong.
Right.
You had a very good senior team who won the championship in '89 and went on to win Ulster as well. Yeah. And they were a very, very successful team.
Yeah.
Liam Sturt was manager. Liam was manager.
Do you remember? It was not the
Big Cool Island in Armagh.
Right.
Scotstown have won the 1989 Ulster Club Championship on a scoreline of 2 goals and 9 points to Coal Island's 5 points.
So anyway, we said goodbye to Ulster Championship for a while.
Yeah, but we still won championships in '92 and '93.
Right.
We were competitive, and Alphonsis Caulfield was team manager at that time.
Yeah.
And we beat Castle Blaney in '92 after a replay.
That's
and then
right.
we beat
I think there were 2 replays, Seamus.
Possibly, yeah.
I think there were 2 replays, and then Clontibbert then the following year.
Clontibbert in '93.
Yeah.
And Niall Mc Kenna was captain.
In '93.
And to date, that's the last championship we've won. But the junior Bs were very strong at that time as well. They were going as well.
Yeah. I remember at the time, Frank McKenna, there was fierce demands on him for the field down below. That's our,
Yeah, once the field was open, the club in its wisdom appointed Frank as kind of looking after the field and the groundsman.
You see, you had the Sigerson Cup Colleges crowd coming in, and you had
because the pitch was all weather, it could be played, and it was fit to be played at all times of year.
Yeah.
Frank was very popular because he was getting phone calls looking for the pitch at all stages. But Frank, being the prudent guy he is, he gave it out, when it suited for the pitch. And he's prudently looked after the pitch very well. Which the fact is that the pitch is as good today as it was.
But the pitch couldn't stand up to that demand, Seamus.
No, the pitch couldn't stand up to demand, so it became very evident that we needed other grounds. Other grounds so where they could train, because there was more people playing. There were ladies football. There was a lot of people playing. There were a lot of juvenile teams, so the pitch couldn't meet the demands. So
you're talking about what, early 90s?
Early 90s. So there was a committee. There was a meeting called, and there was a committee put in place to source extra grounds for the club. And in the meantime, we were playing behind they were training behind the existing pitch.
That's behind the upper wall of the pitch
behind the upper wall.
But that's not really level up there.
No, it wasn't, but it was good enough. It was good enough at the time.
It was mostly for training, really.
Mostly for training,
Yeah. So you talked about maybe then looking for new ground. Remember all the meetings there was about that?
A number of meetings, and the big question is where was the new grounds?
Yeah.
And then Sean McCaig was very involved in the meetings, and he said to leave it to him, that he knew where there was grounds, and if the club left it to him, he would negotiate them. And so the club, give him a vote of confidence to go and negotiate the grounds.
I suppose it made more sense because it had less talk about it.
People were looking for land. Everybody was looking for land that time, and it was made good sense.
More talk would be a bigger price, I suppose.
Bigger price, more people interested.
Yeah.
So Sean then did come back, and he had sourced land and as we now know, it's Kilmore. It was
that
formerly Leo Hamill's.
Hamill's,
the club did
that
play.
was called Hamill's Bottom
yeah.
at this time, you know.
Yeah, because it was going along the river.
That's right, yeah. So
it was owned by Dudgeons at that stage,
yeah.
and they had a tomato farm in it.
That's a very big piece of ground there, Seamus.
17 acres.
Yeah, yeah. And it's good flat land, you know.
Yeah, it's terrific land and very dry because it's running by the river.
And I suppose came at reasonable money too.
Was it 56 or 58,000?
Around the high 50s.
High 50s, yeah.
I think about 58 for that, you know. Yeah,
which was a good price considering 17 acres.
Yeah. You mentioned
so Sean brought it to a satisfactory conclusion, and the club were very happy with that.
That's right. You mentioned Leo Hamill there, you know. He was a member of the 33 team as well, you know.
That's right.
So
the club used to play here, so there was a lot of work had to be done on it.
And that would suggest more
draws, yeah. There was more draws, yeah. How did you know, Maggie?
Oh, good.
You were very involved in them as well, Maggie. You were a big seller.
Again, I think you talked about the £20 draws. We never went for anything higher after that than a £20 draw.
No. You couldn't in economic times. You were making a lot of demands. You were going very often to people. So £20 was a one note.
Yeah.
You know, it was just a one note, and again we found out and sold all over Ulster, and we went into different teams with different leaders, and it was very successful. There's a lot of work had to be done on the pitch on Kilmore.
Yeah.
There was an old tomato farm with a lot of glass, and that all had to be cleared, and it had to be drained. And there's a local man, Eamon Sherry, did the draining, and he.
What was the crack that was? Remember down at the complex? Was it a barn dance or something?
There were different fundraisers. A barn dance. Actually, in fact, Mikey, I have one of the hats here from the barn dance. Martin Mc Carville was very involved in the barn dance.
Right.
I think it still fits. Martin Mc Carville and his committee.
Right.
Martin had a good idea. Martin was always into the entertainment side of things, and they decided to run a barn dance a number of years. And very successful. And they did up
they got a licence.
Yeah, they got a licence from the local publicans, but they did up the complex in an authentic Western style, with hay and bales of hay and hats and lights and straw and sawdust on the floor.
And what were the bales of hay for, Seamus? So you don't
that was for resting on, shall we say? Yeah,
mainly for resting on.
Mainly for resting on. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway,
they raised funds.
That's right. And then what?